It was the kind of rain that didn't pour, just settled into everything, soft and annoying, like an old regret. Raylene stood by the window, her fingers playing with the edges of the coffee mug she hadn't sipped from in a while. The cafe smelled of roasted beans and old pages, her comfort place. She came here when silence at home grew too heavy, too full of memories she no longer wanted to carry. 3 years ago, William walked out of her life. No fight, no explanation, just a half-packed suitcase and a quiet goodbye. He'd said he needed to find himself. Raylene didn't understand what that meant. She had offered everything: support, love, patience. But in the end, it wasn't enough to make him stay. She'd spent months wondering if he missed her, if he regretted walking away. Sometimes, the memories came like a punch: his laugh, the way he kissed her forehead, the way his voice dipped when he whispered he loved her. She clung to those things at first, but pain has a way of turning sweetness bitter. Eventually, the weight of waiting broke her, and she stopped asking why. Then McGinnis came along. He was steady where William was storm, quiet, not in the way of hiding things, but in a way that made space for her voice. They met by accident, literally. She dropped a stack of books in the campus library, and he bent to help. That moment led to small talks, which turned into dinners, which turned into healing. He never tried to fix her. He just stayed. And that made all the difference. Raylene didn't know what love looked like anymore, not in the grand movie way. But she knew safety. She knew what it meant to be seen. And McGinnis saw her, even the parts of her that were still slightly cracked. The bell above the cafe door jingled. She didn't look up at first, too lost in her thoughts. But when the air shifted and someone stood still near her table too long, she lifted her eyes. Her breath caught in her chest. It was William, older, or maybe just worn down by something. His eyes were the same, storm gray and full of that quiet fire, but they didn't carry the same ease. He looked like a man who had tasted regret and hadn't quite swallowed it. "Hi, Ray," he said softly. She blinked. "William?" He smiled faintly. "Yeah, I know. It's been a long time." She didn't respond. She couldn't. Her heart raced, not from joy or anger, but from sheer confusion. She had imagined this moment in 100 ways. In none of them had she expected him to actually come back. He slid into the seat across from her without asking. His hands were shaking slightly as he folded them on the table. I was in town. I heard you still came here. I thought maybe we could talk." Her voice was low. "Talk about what?" "I'm sorry," he said, eyes locked on hers. "I should have never left the way I did." Raylene's laugh was quiet and bitter. "You think a sorry is enough for 3 years of silence?" He winced. "No, I don't, but it's all I have." Her stomach turned. She looked at him, really looked. This wasn't the man who left her. That William had been full of dreams and self-importance. This one looked like he'd broken those dreams with his own hands. Before she could say more, another voice called from the counter. "Hey, Ray, they've got your order ready." It was McGinnis. He walked over, 2 cups in hand. He paused as his eyes settled on William, but he didn't falter. He set the cup gently in front of her, then offered his hand to William. "McGinnis," he said calmly. William hesitated, then shook it. "William." The silence between the 3 of them felt like the kind you don't break with small talk. It demanded answers, explanations, and things no one was quite ready to say. Raylene felt the old ache stir in her chest, the kind William had left behind. But then she looked at McGinnis, his calm presence, the comfort he brought, and she remembered. She wasn't alone anymore. She turned back to William. "You came back with a sorry. That's fine, but I gave my smile to someone who never left." Her voice didn't shake. Her hands didn't either. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like the one who got to choose how the story ended. William didn't speak right away. Maybe he didn't expect her to say it out loud like that. Maybe he thought she'd crumble at the sight of him, like the memory of their love was still enough to bend her back into the girl he left. But Raylene wasn't her anymore. She had bled through that chapter, cried through it, survived it. And surviving had made her stronger. "I deserved that," he finally said, his voice low. She didn't answer, didn't nod or disagree. McGinnis sat beside her now, not territorial, not tense, just present. His calmness wasn't forced. It came from knowing she didn't belong to anyone but herself. William looked between them, then leaned back. "I thought if I left, I could figure myself out. I thought love was supposed to wait for you while you ran away from it." Raylene let out a slow breath. "That's not love. That's selfishness dressed in philosophy." He flinched at her words, but again, he didn't argue. He was here to bleed, and she could see it now. He was holding guilt in his hands like flowers. He wasn't sure how to give. I broke everything, Ray, and I know it. The worst part is, I kept thinking about you while I was out there pretending I was free. You were everywhere, in every cup of coffee, every old song, every damn streetlight. I thought I could forget you. I didn't. Raylene felt a flicker of something inside, an old heartbeat maybe, but it was faint, distant. She looked at McGinnis, who didn't interrupt. He didn't need to defend anything. His presence had already done that. You left, she said, her tone flat. You didn't even ask if I was okay. You didn't check in. You just disappeared like love was some casual thing. William's eyes watered. I was scared. Of what? Of being enough. Of failing you. Of waking up one day and realizing I gave you all of me, and still lost. Raylene shook her head slowly. But you didn't lose me. You threw me away. That silenced the room. Even the clinking of dishes in the cafe seemed to hush for a moment. Donna, the cafe owner, passed by their table and raised an eyebrow at the scene but didn't interrupt. She'd seen too many love stories fold and crack between those tables to interfere. William swallowed hard. Are you happy? She didn't look at McGinnis before answering. She didn't need to. I am. That one answer did more damage than any accusation. William sank into his seat like the truth had finally hit him in the chest. She wasn't waiting. She wasn't hoping he'd return to fix what he'd broken. She had moved on, and not out of revenge or bitterness. Out of necessity. Still, part of her, a small raw part, wondered if closure ever really came. If seeing the person who wrecked you and hearing them say sorry was enough to let go of all the things they left behind. Then I won't stay long, William said quietly. I just needed to see it. Needed to know if I'd destroyed the only good thing I ever had. Raylene leaned forward. You did. But I built something new, something better, and it didn't come from waiting for you to come back. McGinnis stood now, offering his hand again, this time not out of politeness, but finality. William stood slowly and shook it. I hope you treat her right, he said, and his voice cracked at the end. McGinnis didn't smile. I already do. William looked at Raylene one last time. You look better without the weight I gave you. Raylene gave a half smile. I do. He nodded once, turned, and walked out into the drizzle. No dramatics. No promises to return. Just a man who came back too late to find the door already closed. Raylene watched him go, the rain soaking his jacket almost immediately. She waited until the door shut behind him before speaking. I thought it would feel better, she murmured. McGinnis reached for her hand. Sometimes letting go doesn't feel like freedom. It just feels like peace. She turned to him. There. Fingers intertwining without effort. Thank you, she whispered. He kissed her knuckles. I didn't do anything but stay, and that, she realized, was everything. That night, Raylene lay in bed with her head resting on McGinnis's chest. The hum of his breathing calmed her in a way she couldn't explain. It was silent, the kind of silence that didn't demand anything from her. No memories whispering in corners, no ghosts pacing the room, just warmth, steady and human. She traced lazy circles on his chest with her finger, her thoughts still half tangled in the afternoon's encounter. I think part of me wanted to scream at him, she admitted. Into the dark, McGinnis brushed his lips against her forehead. Why didn't you? Because I didn't need to. The anger, it used to eat me up. I used to rehearse all the things I'd say if I ever saw him again. But when he showed up, I didn't want revenge. I just wanted the chapter closed. He nodded slowly. Closure doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it's just a quiet yes to something new. Raylene smiled into his skin. You always say things like that, like you've lived 100 lives. McGinnis gave a soft chuckle. Maybe I have. Or maybe I've just paid enough attention to people who didn't. She tilted her head up to look at him. You're too good for me. His gaze locked on hers. Don't ever say that. You're not someone to be earned, Ray. You're someone to be met exactly where you are. That made her chest ache, not with sadness, but with gratitude. She closed her eyes and let the weight of the day fall off her shoulders. The next morning, Donna texted her. He came back after closing, sat outside in the rain, didn't say a word. Raylene stared at the message, unsure of how to feel. She could picture him there, soaked and shivering, trying to feel something through the numb. She didn't reply. It wasn't her problem anymore. Later that day, she met Donna at the cafe. The older woman handed her a worn-out notebook. William had left behind. It was nothing fancy. Leather cover, corners frayed. Donna said he told her to give it to Raylene, then walked away without another word. She hesitated before opening it. But when she did, she found pieces of him scattered across the pages. Scribbles, sketches, unfinished letters, all of them aimed at her. Some angry, some broken, some desperately trying to understand what he'd done. Some letters began with, "I don't know what I'm doing," and ended with, "I hope you're happy." It wasn't a cry for forgiveness. It was just a man trying to put his pieces somewhere. And maybe that was the most honest thing he ever gave her. She closed the book and handed it back to Donna. "I don't want it." "You sure?" Donna asked gently. Raylene nodded. "Let him keep it. He needs those words more than I do." That night, she sat with McGinnis on their apartment balcony, wrapped in a blanket with her feet in his lap. The city lights blinked like slow fireflies, and a soft breeze tugged at her hair. "Do you believe people can change?" she asked. He thought for a moment. "Yes, but change doesn't always come in time." She smiled faintly. "I think I changed too. The girl he left behind. She would have waited forever. And now?" She looked at him, eyes full of certainty. "Now she smiles at the man who never left." McGinnis leaned forward and kissed her, slow and deep, and she let herself fall into it without fear. No doubts, no comparisons, just the present, just the truth of what they had. Inside, her phone buzzed. Another message from a number she still hadn't deleted. "Last time I write, I loved you the best I knew how. I just didn't know enough." Raylene didn't open it. She didn't delete it either. Some endings don't need responses. Some wounds need to stay as they are to remind you how far you've come. She turned her phone off, leaned into McGinnis, and whispered, "Let's leave the past where it belongs." He nodded, and with that, the future opened quietly in front of them. The weeks that followed were quiet, almost uneventful, and for the first time in years, Raylene didn't feel the need for noise or drama to feel alive. Her life with McGinnis had a rhythm now: unrushed mornings, warm silences, little arguments that ended with laughter or soft apologies. It was simple, and simple, she realized, was all she had ever wanted. But simplicity didn't mean everything was perfect. One Thursday morning, she walked into the kitchen to find McGinnis sitting at the table, staring at his phone. His jaw was tight, his eyes unreadable. He didn't notice her at first. She touched his shoulder gently. "You okay?" He glanced up and tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, just something from work." She pulled up a chair beside him. "Want to talk about it?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "It's nothing that won't pass." She didn't push. McGinnis was open with her always, but he carried certain things in silence. Not secrets, just burdens he didn't want to place on her shoulders. She respected that, but still, the heaviness lingered in the air between them. Later that day, she met Donna for coffee. They sat outside the cafe, the same place where William had reappeared weeks ago, though now it felt like another lifetime. "You're quiet," Donna said, sipping her drink. Raylene shrugged. "McGinnis is off today. Something's bothering him." Donna raised an eyebrow. "You think it's about William?" "I don't know. Maybe. He never said anything negative about him. Never even showed jealousy. But I wonder if it got to him. That he saw the man I used to love. The man who left and came back just long enough to leave again." Donna leaned back. "Men feel more than they show, especially the good ones. They hurt deeper, because they carry it all in silence." Raylene nodded slowly, her eyes scanning the street. "It's weird. William haunted me for so long, and now that he's finally gone, it's like his shadow stuck around. You never really stop carrying your old ghosts. You just stop letting them make decisions for you." She thought about that all evening. When McGinnis came home, he seemed better, smiled more, asked about her day. They cooked dinner together, laughed over a burnt batch of garlic bread, kissed. While music played low in the background, everything felt right again. But that night, she woke up to find his side of the bed empty. She walked out into the living room and found him on the balcony, staring into the night. "You always do this?" she asked, voice groggy. "Brood dramatically under the stars?" He glanced back, surprised. "Didn't mean to wake you." "You didn't," she said, stepping out and wrapping her arms around herself. "Couldn't sleep without you." He gave her a tired smile. "It's stupid. Tell me anyway." He hesitated, then finally spoke. "I saw him again." Raylene froze. "William?" McGinnis nodded. At a gas station. Yesterday. He looked wrecked. She didn't say anything. He saw me. We didn't talk. Just stared at each other like two strangers who knew the same secret. Raylene walked over and slipped her hand into his. And what did that feel like? He looked down at her, his voice lower. Like I was standing in the shadow of a man who broke you, wondering if there's still any part of you left that misses him. She frowned. McGinnis, I know you chose me, he said quickly, and I trust you. Sometimes I feel like I'm holding something fragile, something that someone else already dropped. And I'm scared one day you'll find a piece of yourself that still belongs to him. Her heart clenched, not from guilt, but from the realization of how deeply he loved her. She stepped closer, cupping his face in her hands. Listen to me. He broke me, yes, but you didn't find broken pieces. You found me when I had nothing left to give, and you never asked me to be whole. You stayed. You loved me through the healing. You didn't fix me, you just never left. That's what makes you different. His eyes softened. She continued, there's nothing inside me that belongs to him anymore. You don't live in his shadow, McGinnis. He lives in mine. He pulled her into a hug, tight and warm, and for the first time, she felt him let go of something he hadn't known he was holding. In that quiet embrace, under the moonlight, the last of William's ghosts finally faded from their story. The rain returned the next week, soft and steady, washing the city in a quiet kind of melancholy. Raylene stood by the window of her art studio, watching it trace down the glass in slow patterns. She always loved rainy days, not for the gloom, but for the way they made everything pause. Like the world gave her permission to slow down. She'd taken a break from work, stepped away from commissions and deadlines, and started painting for herself again. It had been years since she allowed herself to create without pressure, without someone waiting at the other end of it. And McGinnis had noticed. I haven't seen you this peaceful since we met, he'd told her the night before, running his fingers down her spine as they lay together. Feels good, she'd whispered back. Feels like breathing without pain. Now, as she dipped her brush into a muted gold and dragged it across the canvas, she heard a knock at the door. It wasn't McGinnis. He had taken the car to see his sister. And it wasn't Donna. She always texted before stopping by. Raylene wiped her hands and opened the door cautiously. It was a woman, tall, elegant, eyes too sharp to be here by mistake. Raylene? The woman asked, offering a small smile. I'm Donna's cousin. My name's Eliza. May I come in for a second? She hesitated, then stepped aside. Inside, Eliza looked around like someone cataloging the space. Not nosy, just observant. Like she saw things beyond what they appeared to be. I won't take much of your time, she said. I'm here about William. Raylene stiffened. Why would you be here about him? Eliza exhaled slowly. Because he's my brother. That stopped her cold. I didn't know he had a sister, Raylene said slowly. We were estranged. He was always difficult, Eliza replied. But I saw him a few days ago, and he told me everything. About you. About the day he saw you in the cafe. He said something broke inside him after that. Raylene crossed her arms. He should have thought of that before he left. Eliza nodded. He knows. He doesn't want anything from you, Raylene. No second chance. He's not that deluded. But he asked me to give you this. She reached into her coat pocket and handed over a photo, creased, faded. It was from years ago, maybe 4 or 5. William and Raylene at the county fair, grinning like idiots, cotton candy in her hand, his arm slung over her shoulder. On the back, scribbled in black pen, this was the last time I knew I was good. Raylene stared at the image for a long time. She remembered that day. They'd laughed until their faces hurt. They had danced barefoot in the parking lot. It had felt like the beginning of something beautiful. But it hadn't lasted. She handed the photo back. I don't want to. Keep it. Eliza studied her for a moment, then tucked it away. I understand. Before she could leave, Raylene asked, is he okay? Eliza hesitated. He's surviving. That's all I can really say. He's living with a lot of guilt, and not enough courage to do much with it. Raylene nodded, her voice soft. That sounds like him. As Eliza left, Raylene returned to her painting. But the gold on her brush suddenly felt too bright. She set it down and stared at the canvas. It wasn't sadness she felt, it was something more complicated. Like pity. Like closure with a bitter aftertaste. When McGinnis came home that evening, he found her in the kitchen, chopping vegetables like the world hadn't tilted slightly earlier that day. He kissed her cheek. How was your day? She glanced at him. Strange. Want to talk about it? She thought for a moment, then shook her head. No, she said. Not tonight. Let's just be here. He nodded, wrapping his arms around her from behind, and so they cooked. They ate. They watched an old movie curled under a blanket. And though William's ghost had knocked once more, it hadn't made it past the front door. Later that night, McGinnis traced his finger along her collarbone and whispered, "You're quieter." She nodded. "It's just, I realized something." "What's that?" "That love isn't just about who makes your heart race. It's about who stays when the storm ends, who holds you when the world is quiet again." And in the silence that followed, he kissed her like he already knew. Raylene woke to sunlight filtering through the curtains, painting soft patterns across the sheets. McGinnis was already up. She could hear the low hum of his voice on a call, the clinking of a spoon in a cup, his usual morning rhythm. She smiled. To herself, it was these small consistencies that made her feel like home wasn't a place, but a person. She pulled on her robe and walked into the kitchen, her hair still messy from sleep. McGinnis looked up and grinned, holding out a steaming mug. "Morning, beautiful," he said. She took the coffee and kissed his cheek. "What's got you up early?" "Work call. Just an update on the museum project." Raylene nodded, sipping her drink. "You're always working. Someone's gotta keep the lights on while you turn our living room into an art explosion." She rolled her eyes, but laughed. It felt good, easy, like they had settled into a rhythm that didn't ask for constant proof, just presence. Later that day, Raylene visited her mother for lunch. They hadn't always been close, especially during the years after William left. Her mother had never liked him much. She saw what Raylene couldn't see back then, that William loved himself more than he ever could love her. Over salads and warm bread, her mother asked, "You still hearing about that boy?" Raylene sighed. "Not from him, no." His sister stopped by, left some closure at the doorstep. Her mother's mouth tightened. "I hope you didn't let any of that back in." "I didn't," Raylene said, "but it still lingers sometimes. The what ifs. Not because I miss him, just because I don't." Her mother softened. "That's the trick of grief. You stop loving someone, but sometimes your soul still checks the door to see if they're coming." Raylene swallowed. "I don't want him to come back. Ever?" Her mother nodded. "Then don't leave the light on for him in your thoughts. You have a good man now. Don't let a ghost borrow space in your peace." That night, Raylene shared everything with McGinnis. Not just about Eliza's visit, or the photo, but about the feelings that came up. The confusion, the guilt over not feeling much at all. He listened without interruption, the way he always did. When she finished, he only asked one question. "Do you still feel like he owns any part of your story?" She thought long and hard before answering. "No, but I think I kept visiting the pages he left blank, waiting for him to fill them. And I've just realized, maybe I don't need them filled." McGinnis reached for her hand, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "Maybe it's time you write your story where he never existed." She looked at him. "But he did exist, and I don't want to pretend otherwise. I just don't want to be defined by it anymore." He nodded. "That's fair. You don't have to forget the pain. You just don't owe it your future." The next few days were healing in ways Raylene hadn't expected. She started painting a new series, one that told the story of heartbreak, but ended in resilience. Each canvas was a chapter, a bleeding heart, a shattered vase, a cracked mirror. And finally, a sunrise breaking over calm water. No names, just emotions poured out through color and brushstroke. Donna came by to see them one evening and stood in silence before the final piece. "This one feels like forgiveness," she whispered. Raylene smiled. "It's not about forgiving him. It's about forgiving myself. For staying too long. For breaking in places I should have walked away from." Donna put a hand on her shoulder. "That's the hardest kind." Later, as McGinnis helped her hang the last painting on the studio wall, he looked at her like she was the most unbreakable thing he'd ever seen. "You know," he said quietly, "you never needed saving." She turned to him, her eyes warm. "But you stayed anyway." He kissed her then, right there among the drying paint and scattered brushes. And in that kiss was every unspoken word they hadn't needed to say. Not love as a declaration, but love as a promise. To stay, to hold, to grow, to never leave. The night air felt different, crisper, cleaner, like something had lifted. Raylene sat on the fire escape outside their apartment, legs dangling, sketchbook on her lap. She didn't draw anything in particular, just lines, textures, shapes. That made no sense. but felt right. The kind of drawing you do when your heart is quiet. Inside, McGinnis played a Miles Davis record, something slow and steady, the notes weaving through the night like a calm pulse. Their lives had softened into something neither of them had expected, free of drama, yet full of meaning. She didn't need fireworks anymore. She needed this, a slow-burning life with a man who stayed. Still, her phone buzzed once more that week. Not a message, just a missed call. William. She stared at the name, not with fear or longing or even curiosity, just a sigh. She didn't call back. She didn't block him either. Some threads don't need cutting. They just need time to fray until they disappear on their own. The next morning, she told McGinnis. He nodded, didn't overreact. He never did. His confidence wasn't loud, it didn't need to be. That was the thing about McGinnis. He trusted her because he knew who she was, not because he needed to control who she might become. That weekend, McGinnis took her out of the city. Just a short drive, no big plans. He rented a quiet cabin by a lake, surrounded by tall trees and silence so thick it made even her thoughts feel quieter. On the second night, they sat by the fire pit outside, wrapped in a shared blanket, wine in hand, legs touching under the stars. You think you'll ever talk to him again? McGinnis asked softly. She didn't answer right away. The fire cracked. The wine warmed her throat. I don't think I need to, she said. He's already said everything he needed to, and I've already moved on. He nodded, but there was something unspoken in his eyes. What? She asked gently. He stared into the fire for a moment. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just the ending, the cleanup after the storm. Raylene turned fully to face him, her brow furrowed. What are you talking about? He sighed. It's nothing bad. Just thoughts. I know you love me. I know we're real. But I also know I came after a heartbreak. And sometimes I wonder if that's why I shine so bright to you, because I'm everything he wasn't. She sat in silence for a long time, watching the reflection of the flames dance in his eyes. Then she reached for his hand and placed it on her chest, where her heartbeat was steady, calm. You're not the ending, she whispered. You're the story I would have written from the start if I'd known better. You're not a replacement for what broke me. You're the reward for surviving it. His eyes softened, and she could see the tension leave his shoulders. You think I shine because you're the opposite of him? She asked. No, baby. You shine because you showed me what love looks like when it's patient. When it's not a fire that burns you up, but a light that helps you see. McGinnis leaned in and kissed her, slow and deep, his hand still pressed over her heartbeat. They didn't need more words after that. Just the warmth of each other, the fire, the night. The next morning, Raylene woke early and walked to the lake alone. Mist curled off the surface, quiet and undisturbed. She stood there for a while, toes in the dew-covered grass, arms folded over her chest, and then, with no grand reason, she whispered into the still air, Goodbye, William. There was no echo, no voice from the past, just the soft sound of her breath and the calm ripple of water nearby. She smiled to herself and turned back toward the cabin. Inside, McGinnis was making coffee. She could already smell it from here. She ran to him barefoot and kissed him like he was the first chapter, not the next one, and he smiled against her lips like he'd always known she'd get there. The final canvas took her 3 weeks. Raylene worked on it in pieces, coming back to it only when she felt something real, stirring. Not obligation, not expectation, just emotion. The process felt sacred somehow, like she was closing something spiritual, something invisible that had lingered in the corners of her life too long. It wasn't a sad painting. It wasn't angry either. It was complete, a wide horizon, the sky painted in the early wash of dawn, soft blues, hopeful oranges, and a pale gold breaking through it all. In the distance, 2 silhouettes walked side by side along a long path. Nothing grand, no faces, no distractions, just the quiet suggestion of love that doesn't need to be loud to be real. She titled it, Where the Storm Ends. When she showed McGinnis, he didn't speak for a long time. He just stared, his hand tightening around hers. Then he kissed her on the temple and whispered, That's us. And it was. A few days later, the local gallery offered to feature her entire collection. It was more than just an exhibit. It was her healing laid bare for the world. The pieces drew people in. Some stared, some cried, some walked out, changed. She watched silently as people stood in front of her pain, her hope, her growth, and made their own meaning out of it. One woman stood for nearly an hour in front of the final canvas. When Raylene approached her, The woman looked up, eyes glassy. I thought I was broken, the woman whispered. But your work, it made me think maybe I'm just unfinished. Raylene smiled gently. Unfinished is beautiful too. It means you're still becoming. As the exhibit closed for the night, McGinnis helped her pack up the remaining pieces. He was quiet, thoughtful, eyes flickering to the painting of the two silhouettes again and again. Later, in the car, he finally spoke. I have something I've been meaning to ask you. Raylene glanced at him, amused. Sounds serious. He pulled over by the river, just as the last streaks of sunlight disappeared behind the hills. The world was quiet again, her favorite kind of quiet. He turned to her. No box, no big speech, just him. I don't want to fix you. I don't want to be your savior or your shelter. I just want to be your partner. In all of it, the good, the ugly, the days when you don't want to speak, and the nights when you paint until you forget the time. Will you be mine? For real? For always? Raylene stared at him, her chest swelling with something too big to name. She'd waited for this once before from someone else, but this time felt different. This time, she didn't feel like she was being asked to sacrifice anything. To say yes, she leaned in and whispered, I already am. They didn't need rings in that moment, or applause, or photographs, just two people in the fading light, choosing each other. Weeks later, they had a small ceremony under the trees near the lake. Just close friends, a few family members, Donna, and quiet music in the background. No grand speeches, just honest vows and promises spoken through smiles and trembling hands. After the ceremony, Donna hugged her tight. You did it, Ray. You turned every broken piece into something breathtaking. Raylene smiled through the tears. No, I just stopped waiting for someone to come back and started loving the one who never left. That night, lying beside McGinnis, her fingers tracing his wedding band, she whispered something she'd never said out loud. I'm not afraid anymore. He kissed her forehead. You never had to be. Outside their window, the rain returned soft. Again, not sad, just familiar. Like a reminder that some storms don't come to destroy everything. Some just come to wash away what no longer belongs. And Raylene? She was finally free. The end.